Hey everyone. So today we're going to animate a photograph of a field. So I first went into Photoshop and broke the field apart. I used a different picture for the sky to use a larger picture. And then I brought in some images of like wheat and flowers and things like that that I cut out and put in the foreground. So we're going to animate the sky moving with position animation. We're going to animate a shooting star. We're going to animate the flowers and wheat kind of waving around with the wiggle expression. Um, and then just kind of bring the space to life. We might even look at a little bit about displacement maps to kind of make the grass move too. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. First thing you have to do is import your file. You can drag and drop the file, or you can go to File, Import File. So up at the top, I'm going to go to File, Import File. Um, it has to be brought in as a composition. So I'm going to grab, let's see, where is it? The PSD file, and then change this to composition, retain layer sizes, and press open. Leave it editable. Press OK. If you open this and you notice that it's not editable and you can't double click it, it's because it's not a composition retain layer sizes. So I can just double click on this and it will open. This composition is pretty large though. Let me see in my comp settings how large it is. So that's 5,000 by 3,000, which means it's actually larger than 4K. So that may make your computer kind of freak out a little bit. So another way to approach this is that we can make a new composition at the top by going to Composition, New Composition, and then just set it to 1920 by 1080. That's going to be the HD size. It's much smaller. It's easier for your computer to work with. You don't need a ton of background or a ton of RAM to run that. So you can see this is a bit smaller. I'm going to go ahead and grab the layers from this. Let's see, I'm going to start with the grass, and you'll notice that it's gigantic. So if I zoom out with my Command or Control minus, I can zoom out and transform that to fit horizontal. Oh wait, whoops, I flipped it. Transform fit to comp width, and then I can move that down. I can also make it a little bit larger if I want to just make sure that my edges don't clip. Then I can go ahead and grab the night sky. I'm going to place that below this background layer. Remember that things show up in the order that you place them. So the top layer shows up first. So I want the night sky to be behind this. My night sky is pretty giant. So I'm going to grab the edge of the bounding box and hold shift and scale it down a little bit. And now it's going to fit it a little bit better with the size of the other layer. Now I have a few other layers that are like flowers and things like that. So I'm going to bring some of those down and I'm just going to place them above everything. You'll notice that it's pretty big. So I'm going to grab the edge of the bounding box and hold shift and scale it down. I'm going to grab the next one, shift to scale it down, hold shift. Oops. And you can zoom in and out with Command plus or minus. And so I can kind of go in here and place these wherever I want. So something like that. You don't necessarily have to do all of the flowers and wheat. We can just do at least four of them. Something like that. Maybe bring it down a little bit more. Okay. So first thing I want to do is animate the sky moving. And so remember that we can always isolate our layers. If I click the isolate, I can isolate the sky layer. I can also isolate just the sky and just the grass if I want to just see those two. So the first thing I'm going to do is animate the sky. So if I click on the sky layer and press P for position, and then move my cursor to 0, I can turn on the position keyframes. And I'm going to move the sky down a little bit because I want to have some space to move it up. And then I can move my cursor over maybe like 10 to 15 seconds. I can zoom in here. We'll do 15. And then click on the sky and basically just move it up. And now let's watch that play. So it's really just going to move at a steady pace. It feels a little bit fast, so I can always just move those keyframes apart. So if I want it to feel slower, I can just take that 15-second keyframe and click and drag it over to 30. And now the sky will move a bit slower, making it look like it's like a better pacing. It doesn't look as sort of fast and strange as it did before. Okay, that looks good. The next thing that I can do with the field, if I want to make the field sort of come to life, is there's a few things I could do, right? I could take the puppet pin tool, apply pins to it, and then add a little bit of movement so that it looks like it's moving. Or I could also try using a displacement map. So if I go to Effect and then Distort and Displacement Map, I could apply that there. And we now have to animate that. So let's see. Um, you can see that it does like vertical displacement and horizontal displacement. And so I could turn on the keyframes for these and kind of adjust them. Let's see if I want to make the space feel like it's sort of coming to life. So one way that I could do that is I could turn on the keyframes here and then move my cursor over a little bit and adjust this up, move the cursor over a little bit, adjust it back down. And now it's going to feel like it has like a little bit of movement to it. Um, the other way that I could do this is I could Alt or Option click on the stopwatch and type in wiggle and then add the XY coordinates. So something like 6, comma 9 or something, or let's do like 6, 11. And then it's a little bit hard to see, but you can see that the whole thing is sort of moving around a little bit now. So it kind of separates it a little bit from the image. It's kind of interesting. And so then if I wanted to add a little bit of horizontal displacement, I could do the same thing again. So if you forgot how to do that, I'll walk you through it. You would hold Option on a Mac or you would hold Alt on a PC and then click on the stopwatch and then type in wiggle. And then you just have to put the X, Y. And so the smaller the number, the less it's going to move. So if I do like 3, comma 5, it's not going to move a ton. If let's say that I do 30, comma 50, then it's going to move a lot. So now see how the whole thing is like shaking around. So that's a little bit too much. I think something like 3, 5 is good. So I think something like that looks pretty good. It just kind of brings the space to life a little bit. It makes it look sort of hand drawn. In animation, we have what's called an animated boil. And so whenever you see a character that's sitting still, but the line is still moving, that's called an animated boil. So the idea is that it just adds a little bit of life or movement or breath to the character that's still. So that's basically what I'm creating with that background there. So now if I deselect those isolation buttons, we can see the animation that we have so far. And it's just a simple sky moving and then a little bit of a displacement map on the grass. So the next thing that I want to do is try animating the wheat. And so I'm going to put my cursor to 0 and grab the puppet pen tool at the top. So remember, if this part's completely confusing you, you can always just look up tutorials for the puppet pen tool in After Effects. So it's the After Effects puppet pen tool. So you could always just look up a separate tutorial for that. Um, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And then I'm going to place sort of an anchor pin towards the bottom of the plant, and then a second one. And then I'm going to place a pin at the top. And the reason that I do that, oh, I actually only placed two. The reason I do that is because if I just place a pin here and then I place a pin up here, the whole thing, including the stem, will move around. But if I place a pin towards the bottom and then place a second pin, I call that an anchor because it holds it in place. So it's like a boat anchor. Like when you throw an anchor over the boat, it holds the boat in place in the water by using a heavy weight. That's basically what we're doing here. I want something to hold the plant in place. So I'm going to place a point at the top. And now I could add a little bit of animation. If I drop down my mesh and the deform options and then the puppet, I can see my keyframes. And I could just manually go in here and animate this moving back and forth. And then there you go. It's like moving very slowly. You can see it move, but it's just moving very, very slowly. So I actually want to undo that. On a Mac, it's Command Z. On a PC, it's Control Z. You can always go to Edit, Undo Move, or Redo Move too, and you can see the controls there. Um, so I'm going to go with faster movements. So I'm going to zoom in and do about 2 seconds, and then move this over. Go to 4 seconds, move it back. 6 seconds, move it back. 8 seconds. So I'm just going every 2 seconds, just to have it kind of wave around a little bit. Now, if I play that, you can see the plant kind of going back and forth. Now you'll notice that because it's animating in a linear fashion, it's kind of robotic, like it's not very exciting in the movement, it's not very fluid looking. So if I select all of these keyframes and go to Animation Keyframe Assistant Easy Ease, then it will add an ease to them. And if you don't really understand Easy Ease, you can always Google eases in After Effects. So there's lots of short tutorials on how to use eases. Press that. And now you can see it's like a more fluid motion. Kind of slows down on the sides and kind of has more of a swaying effect. Okay, so now I want to animate the other plants. So I'm going to go to the wheat one next. Again, I'm going to place a couple of points towards the bottom and then a point at the top. And I can drop down my deform options, and I can just frame by frame move this. Now you can see that play. If I wanted to loop that, I could use that loop trick that I've shown you in class. So remember, on a PC, it's Alt, on a Mac, it's Option. So I would Option click on the stopwatch there and do loop and choose loop out. If you forget how to do that, just Google the loop out expression in After Effects, the loop out expression. You're not required to loop this. I'm just showing you another way to animate it. So you can just manually go through and move these. You don't have to do a loop, but I'm just showing you that that is an option. Um, I'm gonna adjust it a little bit. There we go. And if I add an ease to those, wait, oops. Now it'll look a little bit more fluid. And so I'm just going to go through and animate all of these plants. So this next one, I'm going to click to add two anchor points at the bottom, or two anchors, not anchor points, but two anchors. And then on the top one, I'm going to do something different. So again, you could just manually move these and then move your cursor over and it will record it. That's fine. For this assignment, that's fine. But I wanted to show you different ways to do this so that you can kind of learn new sort of styles. If I wanted to add a wiggle to this, I could Alt or Option click on the stopwatch and type in wiggle and then do something maybe like 6, 8. And now that plant will just naturally sort of wiggle. If I zoom in, you can see it just kind of moving around a little bit. I can do that one more time. So I'm going to do some animation for the flower. So with the puppet pen tool, I'm going to place points towards the bottom and then one at the top. And then I'm really just animating that top point. On the top point, I'm just going to option click and add wiggle. And then you can kind of just make up a number, but let's try 5, 9. Looks pretty good. If I wanted it to go side to side a little bit more, I could change that first number to maybe like 10. Although that starts to feel a little bit jittery. So maybe we'll try like 7. Let's see. It looks pretty good. Okay. So that all looks pretty good. The last thing that I wanted to do is add sort of like a little shooting star. And we're just going to do something really simple for that. I'm going to, up at the top here, grab, if I hold down on the rectangle tool, I can see other tools. So you could even grab the star tool. It's going to look a little cheesy, but we could do that. And then I'm going to change the color. I'm going to make it white. Or maybe we could add a little bit of yellow, something like that. And then I'm going to scale it down a little bit. And you'll notice that this is in front of everything. I actually want this layer to be right above the night sky so that it's behind the grassy field. I'm gonna have, let me move my anchor point for the layer to center it as well. And then I'm going to grab the selection tool and move the layer down below the field or to the side. And basically I want to have this fly across the composition. So on my shape layer, I'm going to press P for position. So remember the shortcut is P. Or if I can't remember how to do that, I can also just drop down the transform options and my position is right here. Turn on the stopwatch, go to about 10 seconds, and then using my space bar, I can get the hand tool to move this over. And now I'm just going to move this from the left side to the right side. Now you'll notice that the line is a perfectly straight line. So it's not a very exciting line. I want to add a little bit of a curve to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the first keyframe and then use my pen tool and add a curve to the position. I'm going to go to the other keyframe and click on that point and drag and add a curve. So I can undo those to show you one more time. I go to the keyframe, grab my pen tool, and then you click on the point and drag up, and that's going to give you a curve. It's just like using the pen tool in Illustrator. And I'm going to go to my other point, click, and drag up. And now we're going to see the star kind of shooting across on a curve. Let's say that I want to add a little bit of rotation. I can put my cursor to 0, turn on rotation, drag my cursor over to where the other side is, and then I can just click on this 0 and type in like 4, something like that. And now the whole thing is going to rotate. If you zoom in, you can see it rotating across the sky. So again, just to show you that one more time, went to 0, turned on the rotation keyframes, dragged my cursor over to the 10-second mark, and then I just clicked here and rotated it 4 times. I could also manually just use the rotation tool and rotate it, and it would also record that. Um, okay. So there we go. Now we have a shooting star. The last thing that I wanted to do with the star is add a little bit of like a trailing blur to it. So what I'm going to actually do is duplicate the layer. So if I click on the layer in my project panel here, I can press Command C, Command V. And then on the duplicate one, I'm going to go up to Effect, Blur and Sharpen. And then I'm going to go to, um, where is it? Directional blur. So directional blur, and I will have to kind of animate it a little bit. Um, it's a little bit hard to see, but I'm going to angle it. And if I zoom in, you should be able to see it. So let me kind of, oh yeah, isolate that. Do you see how it has that nice sort of directional blur right there? So I want that to follow the star. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. What I'm going to do is set my cursor to 0 and turn on the direction and the blur length. And then at the 5-second part, I'm going to move the direction so that it's horizontal since it kind of goes over that arc and it goes horizontal in the middle. And I'm going to extend the blur length. And then if I press Command minus to zoom out a little bit more, I'm going to go to 10 seconds. I'm going to extend the blur length even more. And I'm going to change the angle downward. And it should be a little bit hard to see, but now if I zoom in, you can see that we have the star and we want to create sort of a trailing effect. On this one, I could try setting it to screen. Let's see if that does anything. Um, I could also have the blur start back a little bit further. Um, and maybe increase the length. So I want it to kind of meet the star a little bit better. So maybe I will position it closer. There we go, something like that. So you can kind of play around with the direction and blur length. Just remember that if you have that stopwatch turned on, that it is recording it. So if I click down on effects, you can actually see my keyframes here. So if I want to like redo that, if you feel like the whole thing is just kind of off, we can just turn the blur length up. That looks pretty good. And then you do want it to go more horizontal towards the middle. So what I can do is turn on direction, go to around 5 right there, turn this sideways, go to this part and turn it down so that it's kind of following the direction. Let's see what that looks like. And I'm gonna get rid of that. Oh no, the blur length stays the same. Okay. Looks pretty good. Okay. So now I'm turning off the isolation of those layers, and we have our shooting star that is shooting across the night sky. And then the last thing I want to do is just add a little made by your name at the end. So I'm going to go to the text tool and just type in made by my name. You would put your name. If I want to adjust the color, I can click on fill. I'm going to go with more of like a greenish color. And then I want to have that fade in at the end. So around the like 9 or 10 second mark, I'm going to press T for opacity and set my opacity to 0. And then at 10 seconds, I'm going to turn up the opacity to 100. And now if we want to see this play, I can fit it to the composition and play this animation. All right, awesome. So once you have that, go ahead and export it. Remember, you go to Composition, Add to Render Queue, set your save location and hit render, and then upload that to the Moodle.